The sideband lit up at 0340 and I almost let it go to log. 40 years of nobody calling Latimer Relay had taught me that much. The post still drew power, still turned its dish a half degree every 6 hours out of some old maintenance habit nobody had bothered to switch off, and twice a year it caught a freighter's wandering ping and forgot it within the hour. I was the only living thing inside the dome, and I had long since stopped expecting the boards to mean anything when they woke. This one didn't behave like static. It had structure. Cadence. A repeating header in a compression scheme so old my console had to dig 3 archive layers down to even guess at it. A Calderon administrative format, civilian band, the kind used for internal colony traffic, never for anything aimed outward. Whatever it wasn't meant for me. It wasn't meant for anyone outside whatever sky it had been thrown into. I decoded it anyway. That was the job, even when the job hadn't mattered in decades. It was a woman's voice, flattened by translation software older than I was, addressed to something called the Calderon Home Fleet Medical Authority. She gave coordinates. She gave a colony designation, Caldera Hollow, and a quarantine code I didn't recognize, and then she said, plainly, like she'd said it 1,000 times into a silence that never answered, *61 years under seal. No new cases in 11. Requesting authority to open the gate. Please. Somebody answer this one. The transmission ended. It looped. It had been looping, I realized, checking the timestamp embedded in the header, for 9 days straight. 9 days, and her own people hadn't picked it up once. I sat with that a long time before I touched anything else. Latimer Relay wasn't supposed to talk back to anyone. It existed to listen, log, and forward. A leftover ear from a treaty network that had quietly stopped needing ears around the time I was born. I had one working vessel on the pad, the Harlow Vale *, a survey corvette built for atmospheric mapping, not first contact, with hull plating that had taken more weather than weapons fire and a reactor that complained every time I asked it to do anything interesting. Protocol said, log it, forward it, wait for someone with proper authority to decide if a 61-year-old quarantine plea on a frequency nobody used anymore was worth a response. Protocol also said that about the freighter pings, and those, at least, had somebody on the other end who knew I existed. I queued the fuel transfer before I'd finished arguing with myself about it. The flight out took 11 days. I spent most of them rerunning the decode, trying to find the part of the signal where it had been aimed at Earth, at Latimer, at anyone but the fleet that had apparently stopped listening to its own colony 6 decades back. There wasn't one. The header was clean. The destination field said Home Fleet, full designation, no errors. Caldera Hollow had not called us. Caldera Hollow didn't know we existed. We'd caught the bounce because nobody else had been listening at all. Caldera Hollow showed up on the Harlow Vale * long-range plot as a single grey moon orbiting a dim primary, ringed by an old debris belt that told its own story before I got close enough to read the colony dome scattered across its northern shelf. No traffic. No beacons answering HAL. Just the looping transmission, stronger now, bleeding raw and unencrypted off a tower that looked like it had been built to last a decade and pressed into 40 more. I sent my own hail on the same frequency, plain language, no codes, because I didn't have any that would mean anything to them. Caldera Hollow, this is the survey vessel Harlow Vale, out of the Latimer Relay Station. I'm answering your transmission requesting quarantine release authority. I am not your home fleet. I don't think anyone from your home fleet is coming. I'm what showed up instead. The silence afterward ran long enough that I started composing the message I'd send back to Latimer admitting I'd burned 11 days of fuel chasing a ghost. Then the tower answered, and it wasn't a fleet officer's voice. It was hers, the same flattened cadence from the loop, except live now, except startled in a way recorded loops never are. Repeat your designation, she said. Repeat it. Slowly. I repeated it. You are not Calderon. No, You intercepted a transmission that was not addressed to you. Yes, I did. The pause this time had a different shape to it. Not confusion. Something closer to a held breath finally let go wrong. Too fast, all at once. We did not call Earth, she said. I want that understood before anything else happens. We did not know Earth was listening. We did not know Earth existed in any capacity that mattered to us. I know, I said. You called your own fleet. I just happened to be the one with the dish still pointed in the right direction. She let me land on the strength of that alone, which told me something about how long 61 years under seal does to a person's patience for procedure. The dome at Caldera Hollow's command shelf had the particular tiredness of a structure built for a temporary crisis and never decommissioned because the crisis never technically ended. Magistrate Sawn Arivethra met me at the airlock herself, no guard detail, no ceremony, a tall woman with the ash-grey colouring common to her people and the kind of stillness that comes from holding a single position long enough to forget what moving without purpose feels like. She studied me the way a person studies a result they've already decided is impossible, waiting for it to correct itself. You came alone, she said. Latimer's a relay post. There isn't a fleet behind me. There's me, and a Corvette that wasn't built for this, and a fuel reserve I'm going to have an uncomfortable conversation about when I get home. Then why? It wasn't really a question. I answered it like one anyway. Because nobody else was going to. You'd been asking for 9 days on a loop and the people you were asking hadn't so much as logged receipt. I don't know your home fleet's reasons. I know what it sounds like when a request gets filed somewhere and just stops, like it fell into a drawer and nobody opens. Something crossed her face that wasn't quite recognition. More like the shape recognition leaves when it's been worn down to nothing by repetition. It has been 6 years since the authority opened a channel to confirm receipt, she said. 11 since they sent a medical assessment team. 61 since the seal went up for an outbreak that killed 40,000 in the first year and has had 0 new cases in over a decade. I have filed the release request every season since the count went to 0. I assumed, eventually, that the silence was the answer. That somewhere a committee had decided the colony that lost 40,000 people wasn't worth the fuel to come confirm they could finally open the door. And instead you got me. Instead I got someone who was never supposed to hear it at all. She said it flatly, the way you'd report a sensor malfunction. That is not a comfort, Corporal. That is a different kind of strange to sit with. I want to say I had something better than an apology for that, but I didn't. What I had was a working medical scanner suite the Harlow Vale carried for atmospheric survey work, repurposed twice already on this trip for things it wasn't rated for, and 11 days of flight time to read every public health protocol Latimer's archive still held. It wasn't authority. I told her that twice before she let me run it. I wasn't a doctor, wasn't Calderan medical staff, had no standing to lift a seal that wasn't mine to lift. Then what good are you, she said, and there wasn't venom in it. Just exhaustion finally finding a place to land. I can tell you what the air actually says, today, instead of what a committee decided 61 years ago to assume about it. That's not nothing. She let me run the scan. It took 6 hours across 4 sites, the original containment ring, the northern dome cluster, the burial fields nobody had cleared in decades, and the command shelf itself, where her own people had been breathing recycled air for longer than some of them had been alive. The pathogen was there, in trace amounts, dormant, the way old fires leave ash that can't reignite. Nothing live. Nothing that matched any active transmission profile. I'd seen enough containment data in training to know what dead numbers look like. These were dead. This isn't a release authorization, I told her, because I needed her to hear that part clearly. I can't give you one. What I can give you is a flagged, time-stamped, independently verified atmospheric sample set that says whatever killed 40,000 people 61 years ago isn't in your air anymore. That's a different document than the one you've been asking your fleet for. But it's the kind of document that makes the next person who reads it stop assuming and start checking. There may not be a next person. There's me. I'm filing it the moment I'm back in range of anything that forwards traffic. And I'm leaving you the Corvette's secondary transmitter so you can keep broadcasting on whatever frequency you want, including ours, until somebody with actual authority answers instead of just receiving. She walked me back to the airlock alone, the same stillness in her that I was starting to understand wasn't calm. It was a woman who had spent 61 years learning not to spend hope on things that hadn't been confirmed yet, applying that same discipline to the one thing in front of her that didn't fit the pattern. You said you weren't supposed to hear it, she said. I keep returning to that. Out of everyone in the system, in any system, the one party guaranteed not to be listening for us happened to be the only one who was. Latimer's been pointed the wrong way for 40 years. Lucky, I suppose. Or somebody upstream of both of us forgot to decommission something they should have. Is that what you call this? Luck? I call it the dish was still on and somebody was still awake when it mattered. That's most of what holds anything together, Where I'm from. She didn't answer that. She looked past me at the Harlow Vale asterisk, sitting on the pad with its survey-grade hull and its reactor that complained too much, the least impressive arrival her colony's 61 years of waiting could have produced, and something in her shoulders came down half an inch that I don't think she'd planned on showing me. Send the document, she said. Send it to every frequency you have. I no longer trust that the right ears are listening on any of them. I will. And Corporal. She held the door a moment longer than the handoff required. Thank you for the mistake that brought you here. I do not say that often, and I do not intend to make a habit of being grateful for accidents. But I will allow this one. The flight back gave me 11 more days to draft the report, and I rewrote the closing line 9 times before I left it alone. I filed the atmospheric data the Al Latimer's dish came back into range, flagged priority, forwarded to every contact list I still had access to and 3 I technically didn't. I don't know yet if anyone with real authority read it. I know the Corvette's transmitter is still broadcasting from Caldera Hollow's command shelf, on every frequency I could spare, including ours, because she asked me to stop trusting that the right ears were listening, and I told her I'd help her stop having to. We didn't save them. I want to be clear about that, in case anyone reading this expects a cleaner ending. The plague had already finished its work decades before I was born. What I did was confirm a number that had been true for 11 years and unconfirmed for just as long, because the people who owed her that confirmation had stopped showing up to give it. She didn't call us. I want that on record too, the way she wanted it on record with me, first thing, before anything else happened. Caldera Hollow never aimed a single transmission at Earth, never knew we were a possibility worth aiming at. We just had a dish still turning out of habit, and a relay tech too stubborn to let a 9-day loop go to log unread. That's the whole story. Nobody meant to be heard by us. We answered anyway. I don't know what that makes us, the wrong listener, the lucky accident, the drawer that happened not to be closed, but I know what it made her, standing in that airlock with her hand on the door, someone who got an answer, finally, even if it came from the one place in the galaxy that was never supposed to be listening. Heard you, I'd told her, before lifting off. It wasn't much. It was what I had. She said it back to me on the open channel as the Harlow Vale cleared the debris belt, flat and quiet and entirely her own. Heard you too, Corporal. 61 years late. Heard anyway.